year to date, in 2023, we have excess deaths of some 47,803 people. That equals some 9.5% above 5-year norms. We live in a world where people are extremely focused on their health and their desire to live longer and longer lives. But the data clearly show to us today is the opposite is now occurring. People are dying in ever greater numbers. A warm welcome to this Essential Quinn analytical video today. Today we're looking at excess deaths in the UK, specifically England and Wales, for the period up to week 49 of 2023. The data is from the official Office of National Statistics. In this video, we will be looking at excess deaths by age groups and also specific causes of deaths by disease types. Here we have the results data. As before, the data comes from the Office of National Statistics. This data is downloaded and loaded into my spreadsheet database. In column H here we have the 5-year trend figures, average deaths over a 5-year period for the periods 2015 to 2019. In column I we have actual deaths in the year of 2023 to week 49. The final data for the year will not be available for another couple of weeks. And in column J here we have the excess. So what we can see is that year to date in 2023 we have excess deaths of some 47,803 people. That equals some 9.5% above 5-year norms. Now interestingly, we can see here that the number of deaths involving COVID-19 is just 16,263, and other causes of death, non-COVID causes, account for some 31,540 people. Now let's just compare this for the last number of years. In this report here, I've provided the same information in the same format from 2020 through to 2023. In 2020, non-COVID related deaths were actually 5,000 below 5-year norms. That grew to 21,000 below 5-year norms in 2021. Then there was a turnaround in 2022 with excess deaths now above the 5-year norm of some 12,000 people, and this has now grown to some 31,540 people in the current year, 2023. Of course, in the same period, we saw that COVID deaths were quite substantial in 2020 and 2021, dropping significantly in 22 and 23. Graph here shows this picture with declining COVID-related deaths. However, it also shows increasing non-COVID related excess death levels. Now, one factor I want just to comment on is the Matt Hancock factor. Had Matt Hancock, who was the UK Secretary of State, not made a disastrous decision in 2020 around about end of March, April time, where he insisted that hospital wards were emptied of sick and elderly people out to care homes, it's considered that this disastrous decision, aided and abetted no doubt by the inept Boris Johnson, led to some 21,000 additional deaths. Let me show you the chart which illustrates that. The black dotted line here shows the trend of deaths that would have been expected during the pandemic year had people only succumbed to COVID-19 disease. This red line here is actually the actual deaths that occurred during this period, particularly between end of March and end of May. And you can see here that this red line trends significantly above what was expected to be the level of deaths. So I call this the Hancock factor. In fact, what I'm going to do here is change the color of this line to the Matt Hancock pink tie. Some of you will remember that on a daily basis, he only wore his beloved pink tie. So this pink line now can be described as the Hancock legacy. And we can see here, if we were to take out approximately 21,000 from the total excess deaths in 2020, that would have dropped the number down substantially to approximately 54,000. Strangely enough, exactly the same number of excess deaths we had in 2021, and very comparable to the continuing excess deaths in 22 and 23. Now, of course, in 22 and 23, the COVID-19 deaths dropped off dramatically, and yet we still have these excess death levels. You will recall I have done previous videos showing the effect of certain procedures at different times of the year and how that has an adverse upward effect on excess death levels in certain age groups. But please do go back and find those videos and look at them if you want to educate yourself on them further. Now back to our main chart. We can now see the excess deaths split down by various age categories, and we can see very clearly that all categories, bar the under ones, are significantly higher. 1 to 14 year olds 5.9% higher, 15 to 44 year olds 14.4% higher, 45 to 64 year olds 12.5% higher, 65 to 74 year olds strangely doing relatively well at only 3.3% higher, 75 to 84 year olds 14.1% higher, and over 85 year olds 8% higher. Now we can also look at these deaths by both male and female, and what is interesting is that males are dying at significantly higher levels than females, with 32,000 of the total being accounted for by males and just approximately 18,000 by females. Now the next significant analysis my database can give you is to compare the 5-year trend for specific disease types. In this instance, I've changed the date range to week 48. The reason being, we can download this data from the Office for Health Improvement and Disparities. This data is for England only, but we can select any major disease category and see how it is trending. Of course, in my spreadsheet, I prefer to see the numbers and the side-by-side comparisons. So if we look, for example, here in cardiovascular disease, we have some 13,500 additional, which is up 6.1%. Heart failure up 16.1%, and so on. We can compare the two columns side by side. Now, you will notice here that in this instance, the levels of deaths are actually higher than the overall totals. The reason for this is this report is the report which puts more than one disease as the cause of death. So someone might have a primary cause of death, and then there might be a secondary cause of death. And this report has all causes. If we want to look at single causes of death, we can see them here in this part of the report. However, the government agency does not provide 5-year trend data for this. But interestingly, we can see here that cardiovascular disease accounts for some 22.8% of total deaths. Cancer accounts for some 24.3% of total deaths. So that makes this reporting quite interesting. Going back to the report for multiple death categories, what we can see here is that particularly heart failure is the biggest increase of all the disease categories, some 16.1%. And it's very interesting that though we hear a lot in the news about cancer deaths and the fact that the NHS was shut down for such a long period, leading to more undiscovered illnesses, we see here very clearly that in regard to cancer, which is one of the biggest causes of deaths, some 24% of people die of cancer each year, the number of cancer records on persons' death certificates is actually down nearly 1%. So cancer is not the cause of the excess death levels that we're seeing here in England and Wales at the moment. And by far, the causes of these excess deaths are related to heart and circulatory conditions. In fact, these 5 categories here account for some 42% of excess deaths. The most interesting and alarming trends I believe I can observe from my database is what is going on when various procedures are offered to the public. This is my trend graph showing excess deaths in the age group 75 to 84s. And at the beginning of 2022, we see that this trend line is absolutely flat. If it's trending on the 0, there are no excess deaths. Above 0, there are excess deaths. We then had this particular procedure, and you will see that the graph immediately upticked quite aggressively. And I have noticed this every time we have had one of these procedures offered to the public. Let me take out the line. So now we just have the trend lines that I have observed within this data set. And you can see for yourselves that each time there's a procedure, there is this significant uptick in excess death levels. Make of that what you wish. I hope you have found my analysis and graphics revealing and interesting. My friends, we live in a world where people are extremely focused on their health and their desire to live longer and longer lives. But the data clearly show to us today is the opposite is now occurring. People are dying in ever greater numbers. People are putting their trust in medical procedures and all types of medicines. But my friend, ultimately one day we will all die. I myself put my trust simply in the Lord Jesus Christ, God's Son, who came to earth, lived a vicarious life died a cruel death on the cross of Calvary in atonement for the sins of all peoples, and offers us free salvation to those who believe. We are taught in the Bible there is no other name in heaven or earth by which we can be saved, and that is where I place my trust. So, friends, please consider your spiritual future as well as your medical future. Where will you spend eternity? Will you be in heaven with the Master, the Lord Jesus Christ? I hope you will. Thank you for watching. I wish all of you a happy 2024 and a prosperous new year, and God's rich blessings for you. Thank you. Thank you for watching.